WOVU LP, Cleveland.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Good morning and welcome to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson. My guest is Joyce Dixon, the founder of Caledonia Arts and Community Center in Cleveland Heights. She has a fundraiser coming up on October 30th. It's going to run from 6 to 9 p.m. and it is a murder on the night train. It's a murder mystery dinner, a fundraiser for the facility there. Welcome to Open Door.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the show today. And I received a call from a very good friend of mine, and she told me about the fantastic things that you're doing over there at the community center. So I had to have this conversation. So I'm glad to have you with us. So tell us about this event that you're having and why you're having it.
The murder mystery is an event that I'm putting together because normally I give children in the community, children or parents that is in need for presents for their children Christmas time. So I try to raise money to buy presents and everything for the kids so the parents can have baskets to help them out with the food for the holidays and just to keep the spirits up with children and parents, actually, and grandparents. So we usually try to do something for the whole community, not just East Cleveland or Cleveland Heights. We even had kids and parents and families from the west side all the way from Akron. So I try to raise money to help out with that.
Okay, and as I understand it, this is actually not the first time that you've done this. Tell us about the history of the event.
This is actually the fourth time for the murder mystery. I've been doing fundraisers myself privately, raising money to help families in the community for 10 years now.
10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of my own money. I'm also was working for the school district. I have a master's in education, and so I'm a teacher by trade as well. So a lot of times I find that a lot of parents don't have the resources that they need, especially in the most sensitive times, and that's around the holiday times, and people oftentimes find themselves depressed because of the financial situation. So I try to lend a hand the best that I can. And last year, the Cleveland Heights Police Department helped out a great deal. The Call and Post did one of the interviews for what was taking place, and so they kind of spreaded the word. So the arms have gotten longer, in other words. So they helped out more people, and they actually helped me a great deal. They brought all the presents that was donated amongst the ones that I had bought, and they brought them in, and we served, I think, like 200 families last year. So that was a really successful event.
Okay, and this murder mystery, I'm assuming that there is some type of a artistic aspect to it. You have folks who are performing. Tell us what that murder mystery looks like.
The murder mystery is basically those who are interested in it, they have a role to play. We will give them their role, and then a lot of it, they would do a lot of improvisation. So those individuals that think that they can't act, they find that they can act. And it's a networking as well. So they would kind of socialize with the people there. I don't know if you're familiar with the Clue game, but basically it's like Clue. You would have to figure out who did the murder through the conversation, take your notes and everything. So in terms of drama, art, listening skills, just communicating with one another and actually trying to figure things out, they do quite well.
Okay.
And there's trophies and things that's given to the best dressed because they have to dress the part. This particular one took place in 1930, so they would have to dress the part. The music goes with it, so we kind of changed the whole building into that 1930 or whatever the theme is of the murder mystery.
Okay. So I'm just trying to visualize what this looks like, and you frame it within the context of a dinner. So are people coming to this event and then they're having dinner and then they're observing like a theatrical production, or exactly how do you pull it off?
Well, the people that come, they have a role, so they are your actors or actresses. They are the main characters within that, and one doesn't know the other. So they play the role. They assume whatever. Say for example, we have a journalist. He or she will play that role based off of the year, which in this particular one is 1930. So they would play the role as the journalist would do. They would dress the role for the clothing. So it's just consuming everything that went on in the 1930s based on the murder. So they'll have bits and pieces, and that's where it comes in, where everyone comes together and try to figure out where the bits and pieces. And then it's the acting part of it is maybe the lights will go out and they'll find out that someone has died. So you basically would have to find all of the pieces, the murder weapons and things like that. So you're just taking notes down. You become an inspector. You're taking the notes down and you're trying to figure this out. Who figures it out, obviously will win the prize. And so it's first, second, and third prize. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still struggling to grasp this. So pardon the brain fog at the moment, but so folks are coming to this event to support it as a fundraiser. Are they observing what's going on, or are they participating in it? So everybody who comes in plays a role.
Everyone participates. Now, you may have some spectators, but they also have a conversation with it. So they may not have a particular role walking in, because we ask that you go ahead and take ownership of whatever role it is. So when you hit the door, acting begins. Now, if you're just a spectator, you're just going to enjoy the movement. We ask that they walk around, and you basically feel like you're just walking into the scene. So what I'm saying, to give you a visual, I'm basically creating a train. It's going to look exactly like it's a train. It's set up when they walk inside the doors. It looks just like the 1930s. And this particular train is leaving Paris going to Moscow. So all the decorations and everything is as if you're in Paris.
Okay. So it's like Murder on the Orient Express at the Caledonia Arts and Community Center.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I guess the best way to understand how it works is to be there. So if you're listening right now and you're curious, you might want to stop by. It's at 960 Caledonia in Cleveland Heights, and you can come by and you can participate in this. And it sounds like a great time. Talk to us about the Caledonia Arts and Community Center. How did it come about?
When I used to teach for East Cleveland School District, and just wonderful, wonderful kids. And I said when they were thinking about, and they did for a short period of time, to take the arts away from the schools, I thought that was not such a great idea due to the fact that a lot of African American children express themselves, and I find that they do much better when they're in the arts. As far as education, we kind of find another gateway of learning. And so I said that I wanted to do something about that. I didn't want to just sit and have a conversation with people, expressing how I felt about it. I wanted to actually try to do something about it. And that's the reason why I did this. I did all the artwork myself, pretty much created everything in here. towards the kids with learning disabilities, because I always think that, I kind of funnel education through the arts, because I find that a lot of the students had difficulties with the traditional way of teaching, meaning textbooks, and that's it. So I found another avenue for them.
So
it worked.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're filling in some of the gaps that have been left by the exclusion of arts education from schooling in East Cleveland.
Schooling just anywhere, really. I've been in pretty much all the schools in Ohio, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, and then I find, like, I don't know, I experiment a lot just to see, because, the way that education is set up, it's like we go with the model role. You model this and the children will get it. Well, I also deal with a lot of the students that are not allowed in public schools, and those are PEP schools and day treatments. And I'm like, if you want to, go with that theory about modeling, if you put all of the same type of children in a particular building and you're supposed to model the behavior, you cannot expect anything different as far as the outcome if the behavior is exactly the same. So I took the program, and I started out 1 year with maybe 3 or 4 of the behavioral kids, the severe behavioral kids, and tried to pair them up with what we call our normal children. And I saw a real difference in the behavior. And I said, oh, okay. So then I start increasing the kids. These kids are kids that's on lithium and all that. And just for the outcome, I was quite pleased. And then I was also pleased that some of the kids, not all of them, but some of the kids were able to go back to public schools. Their behavior just turned around. So I just thought that was a positive thing. I just wanted to continue it. And that's how it started. Okay,
so are you doing something outside of the normal schooling situation that involves children coming to your school during regular school, or to your facility during regular school hours, or is this something that happens after school and on weekends?
For that particular scenario that I'd given, that was for the summer program. So I had a 6-week summer program. And then within 6 weeks, the students' behavior had curtailed, to the point where there was really no behavior. There were some incidents, but not what I would be concerned about behavior. They all have triggers, and you have to understand the child within the child. And that gave me time to do that, and not, a cookie cut kind of situation. Each individual, I find what the weak point and the strong point, and I try to bring them together, and with a lot of success. So even the worst kids, they still come back here and they see me. They've graduated. They have to learn how to live in society, because those very kids that we X out, they're going to be our neighbors, or even maybe some of them may be the ones that helping you when we're in the nursing homes, or whatever the case may be, even a hospital. Mm-hmm. But whatever the problem is, we're going to have to learn to deal with it. We can't just erase these kids out.
Okay.
So
very, very interesting. We're going to dive a little bit deeper when we come back. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Joyce Dixon. She's the founder of Caledonia Arts and Community Center. We'll be back with more Open Door right after this.
It's okay to not be okay, meaning you're not alone in how you feel and what you're going through. There are millions of others who are either facing the same thing that you're facing or have faced it and lived to talk about it. So the other thing I would offer is it's also okay to ask for help.
This message of hope is from the Alcohol, Drug, Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County, the Suicide Prevention Coalition, and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
We're back on Open Door with Vince Robinson, and my guest is Joyce Dixon, founder of Caledonia Arts and Community Center. She's having an event on October 30th from 6 to 9 there at the Community Center, which is located at 960 Caledonia in Cleveland Heights. It is Murder on the Night Train. It's a murder mystery. Sounds rather immersive and sounds like it's going to be a good time, and you can support this event by showing up, and I will give you information to contact Joyce before we end this program, so you'll be able to dial in and participate. So before we took our break, we were just talking about some of the students, the program that you have been facilitating there, and what I found fascinating was the fact that you had a 6-week program, and after 6 weeks, you were able to see a discernible difference in the behavior of some of the students that were challenged. Can you talk about how and why your method is so effective?
Yes. The kids were able to express themselves. We did a lot of improvisation. I had wonderful artists to come in and teach music. The kids were able to learn how to read music. Also put a little skit together so they were able to act out things. It was just allowing the children to be who they were or are at that given time. A lot of them are young and they don't know how to express themselves, so we give them another avenue, especially if the behavior is really to the point where it's unmanageable for many.
Well, it's really interesting, in that you are talking about how impactful art is in the lives of children. And when we look at the landscape of education here in the Cleveland area and in other parts of the country, you see an exclusion of arts from the education process, and the children are paying a heavy price there. We talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but there's no A in it. So instead of STEAM, it's STEM. So as an educator, because you did say that you have a master's degree in education, can you talk about why that exclusion has occurred?
I think for many, you have to change the attitude towards the art community. And that being said is that sometimes we give it less credit. And art is just as important as anything. And like I tell children and adults, I tell them, it's your lens and how you see things and express yourself. So it oftentimes helps those who have a difficult time, which is myself as well, expressing themselves. A lot of people they shy away from actually being able to express themselves for many reasons. Maybe we've been held back, meaning that people say, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't do that, you should. But when you actually looking at a child's art, and when I was working for ETS, Educational Testing Services, a lot of times we look at, and you actually look at the maturity of the child. How do a child express themselves? Are they putting legs and arms and all of this? So it has the psychology of things as well. And we take it for granted.
Yes.
And that's the very reason why.
Well, another thing, and this is just occurring to me in the moment that we're having this conversation, a child being able to engage in an artistic process enables them to be creator and to be creative. And I always or often make the connection between being creative and being connected with the creator. When you look at the way our children are taught, when we look at the American educational system and we understand why it exists, there are some who say that it was just basically a means of training workers, because it's kind of a factory approach to learning. So you got this one size fits all methodology, but people learn in different ways. There are even racial implications when it comes to the way people learn. So, from my perspective, one of the reasons that art has disappeared from many curricula is because it is intended to injure the student, because if they had it, it would actually be building the student up. I know people who practice meditation, and I know of situations where children may be meditating in school, and they found that children who meditate as a part of their educational process do much better. They've also found that children who engage in the arts in their educational process also do better. They learn better. If students are taking music or they're doing music as a part of their educational process, they end up being better students. So it just seems to me, and we had an offline conversation about being candid, so I'm being candid in this moment, but I honestly think, and some folks might think that I'm out of my mind for saying this, but I honestly think that in some situations, because of racism in the educational process, we are not equipping our students with the things that they really truly need to be successful in life. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, because with students, and not just kids. We're talking about children, but even the most complicated adult. Mental illness, it plays a role in our society, and if we can try to understand the individual itself, sometimes it helps out. Not sometimes, a great many times. It helps out if you're just looking at the artwork. It tells the story. If the person can't tell the story, I have an autistic kid here today. He did some artwork for me, and just for him trying to explain what it was, it was beautiful. It was beautiful for him to be so excited about his work and trying to actually put it in words. I took a lot with me on that one, because I've been working with him for over 2 years, and just to see the growth. You can see a growth in young people and some adults' work. You can see the growth, especially if you're trying to work with problems, if they're abused or any little thing. It comes out in their artwork.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that for a couple of reasons. One, I just wanted to point out the therapeutic aspect of the creative process. When a child is sitting down and they're drawing whatever it is, whether it be a stick figure or whether it be a Rembrandt or Kehinde Wiley, they're engaged in something that enables them to focus on something other than a cell phone, a tablet, or computer, or a television screen, or whatever. So they're immersed in that, and that therapeutic aspect of it is something that facilitates a healing process. And this is not just applicable for a child; it's applicable for anybody who engages in that. So I just wanted to point that out. But I also wanted to ask you about what autism looks like, because we hear the term autism all the time, but we may not be connected to someone who has autism. So what does it mean for a child to be autistic?
One, it has a great deal of levels. And I'm going to go with the more moderate or maybe severe. Let's go with the severe. And say this individual is not very verbal. And so when they're not very verbal, when things are not going right in their head, they sometimes get aggressive, because they can't express themselves. But I find that when you give them a piece of paper, if they're engaged in that, and I'm glad that you use that term, because it does keep them engaged. It calms them down. Sometimes their focus is like right there. They just want to express themselves, even from the smallest to the largest. I mean, as far as in size and age. So autism on a spectrum, a lot of the kids maybe they're not so social. They like to be by themselves a lot. They may pick out an individual. They're really emotional. Especially if you have one that's on the spectrum, maybe Asperger's, they don't like a lot of people, and they don't like a lot of movement around them. And I'm not speaking of all of them at the same. It's just it's so many different variations when it comes to what autism looks like. It could be mild, and then it could be very severe. So there you go.
And in your research on autism, have you come to any conclusions or any ideas as to why there's such a great deal of autism in our country?
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of people, a lot of scientists have studied the brain, and we really have to pay close attention to what we do as far as the foods that we take in, how things are prepared, and basically what works for that individual. There's a lot of things that I won't touch on at this point, other than saying that we need to be very mindful of what we take in during pregnancy and take in when a child is diagnosed with autism.
Okay. Well, I don't want to profess to be an expert because I'm not, clearly. But what I have learned through various sources is that there is a direct connection between diet and autism. I host a radio show on another radio station, and a few years ago, we had a guest on who was an engineer, and she made some dietary adjustments because she had a child who was autistic. And what she found was that monosodium glutamate was one of the primary factors in the expression of autism in her child. So monosodium glutamate, also known as MSG, is known by several different names. And because of that, she had to know all those names. And she had to be very diligent about reading the labels of foods that she may have been feeding her child. And when she became aware of all those things that it's called, and she took those things out of the diet, there was a remarkable difference. You talked about how an autistic child might be antisocial or non-communicative. But after she made those adjustments, it's like the child did a 180 and was very social, was very loving, very compassionate, and all those things. So I said all that to say that there are things that are out there that can enable us to make changes in our lives that can maybe, reduce the severity of certain things. So knowledge is key. Information is critical. And if you look in the right places, you can find ways to deal with that. I'm also interacting with someone who deals with vibrational energy. And this is something that many people don't know, because vibrational energy was something that it was actually poo-pooed back in the day when the American Medical Association decided that they wanted to have a monopoly on medical information. So they kind of discredited others who were doing things that were credible remedies for things that people were suffering from. So I just want to put out there that there is a certain sense of hope that you can have if you're dealing with someone who has autism. There are things that you can do to mitigate the severity or some of the symptoms that are expressed.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with that due to the fact that I have celiacs, and I know I read everything because my body will reject it, you know.
Yes.
So you're right. We have to be proactive in what takes place with our children and ourselves, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those 13 minutes flew by really quickly, so we're going to have to step away for just a moment, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Joyce Dixon, the founder of the Caledonia Arts and Community Center. They're having an event. We'll tell you about it when we come back. This is 95.9 FM, WOVU, a Burton Bell Car community radio station.
It's okay to not be okay, meaning you're not alone in how you feel and what you're going through. There are millions of others who are either facing the same thing that you're facing or have faced it and lived to talk about it. So the other thing I would offer is it's also okay to ask for help.
This message of hope is from the Alcohol, Drug, Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County, the Suicide Prevention Coalition, and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
We're back. Open Door with Vince Robinson and my guest, Joyce Dixon, founder of the Caledonia Arts Community Center. And again, they're having an event on October 30th from 6 to 9. It is Murder on the Night Train, and it's a murder mystery, and you can participate. Joyce, while we're on the subject, tell us more about the event, how folks can get involved and participate.
Well, basically, you can go on the website or Facebook, and you can call the center, 216-249-1111, and you can receive more information if you would like to participate in the future. We try to do this at least once a year and getting people involved in that because we basically try to help for the Christmas seasons, the Thanksgiving season for families who may be struggling. So this is one way of raising money to help out. Okay.
Are you having other kinds of programs there at your facility?
Yes, we will have a Christmas party, Toys for Tots, for a week, 2 weeks before Christmas. I don't have the exact date right with me at this point. But every year we give families, I upload information to a lot of the people a lot of people now know about it because I've been doing it for the last 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've been carrying a lot of this on your own shoulders. I'm just curious about what type of support that you get from other sources.
Yes, I've been carrying pretty much all of this on my shoulders. But last year, the community came out, the Cleveland Heights Police Department, they came out, they gave word, and there was more donations than have ever been. And I am so grateful to all that have tried to help out. So anyone that really wants to help out, I would appreciate it. The Senator, Sandra Williams, she's always helped out the nonprofit part of the community center. So it allowed me to be able to help families who may have just problems paying their bills. I've helped out in that respect. So it's people, good people in the community that want to help, and they have helped. And I ask to continue with the donations and things like that because we become a family. We all have to help each other.
Okay.
It's difficult times now.
All right. So you mentioned having a master's degree in education and also working within the school system. Give us some understanding about your history. What were you doing before you created this institution?
Well, you won't believe this, but I've had quite a bit of jobs. I always worked more than one job. And I've always, I guess, served the people. I drove an ambulance for a physician ambulance, Rural Metro now is it called. I've been teaching since 2001 in some respects, subbing and actually teaching. I also been working with the community for the after-school programs and reading programs and things of that nature. I actually offered the service free. It was free service for people in the East Cleveland community. And then I was a flight attendant. I used to do freedom empowerment, work with the young people, trying to give them skills, and work with the church right there off of it's escaping me now, the name of the church. But a friend of mine's, her church, I worked with them trying to get the young people some type of skills, building skills and things like that. I worked cosmetologist. I taught for Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland years back. So it's a lot of things that I work with young people and adults, because I did tutoring for adults for their GRE. So those are some of the things that I have done prior to opening up the building.
That is quite a movie there. I mean, to go from driving an ambulance to tutoring someone to being a flight attendant, which means that you've probably traveled the world, if not the United States, definitely. How is it that you've been in so many different things of such diverse natures?
Well, if you want an honest answer to that,
yes.
Is when I was 22, I actually was in the morgue. I had passed, and my I call it a canvas. It was empty, so I actually had to fill it back up. Lost all memory. Let me change it. Lost all memory, and I'm still paralyzed, lower paralyzed, and I taught myself all over again. Taught myself how to talk. Sometimes I don't do it so great, but I'm wonderful. So those are the things that motivated me to reteach myself. I mean, when the doctor tells you that you will not be able to do this and that, I don't put all of that to my heart. I know that God has a plan for every one of us that's on this earth. And my plan wasn't to die. So if he brought me back, it was for a reason. And so I'm going to search for that reason. So I know that we grow by helping other people. So that's where, it's a difficult task, but it can be done.
That is absolutely amazing to me. A few weeks ago, maybe about a month or so ago, I interviewed Mary Thomas, and she was telling me how she recovered from a brain aneurysm. I mean, or it was either an aneurysm or a stroke or something, but it was like, she really lost her mobility. She lost her ability to function. But after recovering from that, she's become extremely active, and an advocate, extremely artistic. And I'm hearing the same narrative from you. So at the age of 22, you were in a morgue. So for all practical purposes, you were dead and you came back from the dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm.
And then now, but the flight attendant piece, because I can't see you rolling a wheelchair down the aisle in the plane. So how did that happen?
Well, aviation high school. I was the only female there when my mom died and we were flown back here. I lived in Atlanta, and I went to aviation school. I always was interested in planes. I was interested in welding. I'm a hands-on type girl. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. So that intrigued me. So that's the reason why it was the love for the airplane. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think your life is proof positive that we are not just the job that we do. Sometimes in life people define themselves by their occupation, but you've done so many different things. It just doesn't seem that someone could just put you in a box and say, "Oh, she's that." So you said that you were partially paralyzed. That's still a condition that you have right now?
Yes. I will be that way for the rest of my life.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you and your son were building these things that are part of the murder mystery that you're going to do in just a few days. So obviously it has not hindered you from being creative and productive.
No, it hasn't. I went to Kent State for design, industrial design. I've designed a lot of wire art. I've done quite a bit of things that I didn't even know that I could do, which surprised me. I just woke up one day and I started bending art, bending the wires and creating art. I just start drawing on the walls, and I'm like, man, I can draw. I can do this. I can do that. So the sky's the limit. Most importantly, I think, because I'm the type of person that I'm not afraid to fail. And I'm not afraid of being imperfect. Because some people think that they have to. And I don't impress anybody, really. I don't try to anyway. I just be me. And I find it's easy for me just to be me.
Okay. Well, that's great advice. I think most of us need to get to a point in life where we just accept ourselves as who we are. And the key to experiencing an optimal life is to just be you. So many times we try to live up to other people's expectations of ourselves. And, but you have to be you. A guest on a previous show was talking about how his father would discourage him from doing certain things. He was artistic and he needed to express himself through art. But his father is telling him, you can't make any money as a graphic artist, so maybe you should think about doing something else. So he indicated that he wanted to go into the military. Well, his father, talked him out of that. So many times there was someone standing in the way of a person living in their purpose. But it's just so important for us to live within our purpose and to know what we are capable of. With the education system being what it is, many times people don't know what they're capable of because they haven't explored those possibilities. I'll give you an example. There are very few African American curators of art in this country. When you look at the major museums, we can look at Cleveland, for instance. MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Art. Last year, they had the very first African American curator in 50 years of that institution. So a young child, if they're not exposed to what it means to be a curator or what that's all about, they have no reason to aspire to do that or even to be aware of that as a possibility. So, yeah, we really do need to be in situations where we can explore possibilities, where we can become aware and cognizant of our talent so that we can do more than just that one thing that we're assigned to for the rest of our lives, and again, your life is proof positive of those possibilities.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why I have such a rapport with children, which I do. And one, because I teach the kids, first of all, in order for you to learn, you have to understand failure. And failure, in a lot of people's eyes, not mine, is a negative thing. But I look at it as it's a positive way of actually learning life. Because if you don't fail in life, how do you know you're living? We all have to go through storms. And we are so afraid of failure that we don't allow ourselves to go through storms with an understanding. Because we're going to go through them regardless if we understand it or not. But if you understand it, you'll flow better. So I remember my husband would say to me, you never accept that you don't know something. And I said, no, I don't accept that because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, but I'm going to know it. And that's part of life. See, people don't understand. Moving through and living life is about the trials and the tribulations in which we go through, because it helps build the character of the individual.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I preach that to the kids all the time because they're too afraid to try. And as you said, with the person that you interview, to the father telling them they can't do this, they can't do that, and people live off of everybody else. But I don't really live vicariously through anyone but myself. All of my mistakes that I make in life, I'm okay with it. Because it makes me the unique person that I am. I don't try to judge and criticize anyone. I take people for who they are and all the mistakes that they make. I'm not God.
Okay.
So the best thing I can do is just give be a soundboard for someone.
Okay. You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. Vince Robinson with Joyce Dixon. We'll be right back.
It's okay to not be okay, meaning you're not alone in how you feel and what you're going through. There are millions of others who are either facing the same thing that you're facing or have faced it and lived to talk about it. So the other thing I would offer is it's also okay to ask for help.
This message of hope is from the Alcohol, Drug, Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County, the Suicide Prevention Coalition, and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson, and my guest is Joyce Dixon, the founder of the Caledonia Arts and Community Center. They're having an event on October 30th from 6 to 9. It is Murder on the Night Train. It's a murder mystery that you can become involved in simply by attending and donating your time and your resources to a very, very, very worthy cause. If folks are interested, they can call 216-249-1111. That's 216-249-1111. You can also visit their Facebook page at the Caledonia Arts and Community Center. In the last segment, we were just talking about the diversity of experiences that you've had, and we talked about your thirst and hunger for knowledge and information, and how when you don't know something about something, you will find out how. I just wanted to dive into your vision for the community center that you have created. What kinds of things do you envision doing in the future that you're not already doing?
I would like to envision the center coming to life. I basically would like to do something with the seniors. I watch a lot of them, and they have nothing to do. And I think that the center could offer them a little hope, simply because you have the children here, and the children bring, I think, this is my personal feeling, I think the children bring the center to life. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see the generations come together, the young and the older. I was in one of the schools in the Cleveland Public Schools. I believe, I can't think of the name of the school, but they had this program. It was called the Granny Program. And just to watch how the elderly interact with the young, and the young interacting with the elderly. I just think that that's such a great combination to bring life back into those who may not have as much zest as they would like to. I think the children brings it back to them. So that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that there is some energy being developed right now around the concept of intergenerational interaction. I know I'm connected with a group called The Circle, a young lady who was very motivated to create those connections and kind of relate to the whole concept of the village. Within the village structure, there's a hierarchy that creates a certain modicum of respect. One of my mentors is Dr. David Whitaker. And a few weeks ago, there was a program where he was talking about the village structure. I was very privileged to visit Africa a few times within the past 3 years. In 2019, I actually spent about 14 to 15 days in Ghana, and then I spent another 2 weeks in Egypt, aka Kemet, and another week in Sudan. And in Ghana, I am actually on the village registry, a village called Atonkwa. So I am connected to a chief, and I've seen how it works. Now, I call Dr. Whitaker Nana. Nana is another word for chief, or that certain level of respect. But Nana was he was describing a situation where he would pull his car into the village. He would get out of his car and open the trunk, and a child would see him reaching in the trunk to carry something from his car into the building that he was going on. And the child would come up to him and say, that's not your job. That's my job. So you have this certain understanding of roles and responsibilities, and it's about youth respecting elders, and it's about elders respecting youth. So to think about bringing young people and old people together, it really provides an opportunity for learning and growth on both sides. So you have young people who are technologically savvy, and you've got elders who are not. So young folks can show elders how to navigate the technology and use it to their advantage. So there's a great benefit in bringing the generations together.
Yes, I would agree with you on that. I actually witnessed the life just being put into your more seasoned people, So it takes a village to raise a family, and unfortunately, I think that it's going to have to be caught on a lot more due to the times that we're kind of moving in right now. It's difficult times for all families. So to answer that, I would love to see that happen in the building where it comes to life. People will have a safe place to come, learn, and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So how would you go about creating that engagement or the involvement? How would you do that?
Well, I'm working on it now. I'm working on some grants that allow me to, hopefully I will get them to allow me to do that. I think simply because people are having such a hard time financially, and it's just too much of a burden to continue on my shoulders. I'm getting older, and I just don't want to carry that burden along. So I am now seeking a little financial assistance, so we don't have to ask for people to have that discretionary money, because it's limited now due to the workforce or just things that's going on. As I said, COVID has changed a lot of things. So if I can get that assistance, we can offer programs without families coming out of their pocket. And I think it's a healthy way of doing things at this point. The more that I can get involved, within safe, staying safe, in other words, making sure that we're social distancing, even though the shots have come. But for me, I just like to play it safe. So those are some of the things that I'm working on. I did hire someone to come in and help me with the grants, because basically all the paperwork and everything I do pretty much myself, everything I run. So I do have someone that comes in now, and she's given me a hand. So with her and myself, I'm praying, and I know it will happen, that I can move a mountain for me,
Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
All right. So you mentioned the 6-week program that you do during the summer. What kinds of programs are you running outside of that? I know you talked about, this being the 4th year for the murder mystery and that program, but what other kinds of programs are you running currently?
Well, we do book clubs for kids, and I actually believe in that whole theory. It is child-centered, not adult-centered. So I let her run that, give them responsibility, and it will ultimately teach them to be responsible.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a staff do you have?
It's basically it's me, and then I hire so I have in the summer, about 5 people here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of volume of students, how many or how many children might you be working with at one time in any of your programs?
That, my dear, is a very difficult question. It's a loaded question because I really don't know. Things have really changed a lot because of the COVID for the last 2 years, basically. I didn't have a lot of kids this summer, only because I really wasn't taking a whole lot of kids. I took one kid from PEP. That's all, because people have quit jobs. I really, the whole industry has changed, and it makes it really, really difficult for me to get a handle on. People don't really want to work. I'm just going to be honest with you. They really don't. It doesn't matter how much you pay them. They do not want to work. And in terms of not wanting to work, I've hired a lot of people, and I couldn't keep them. I basically couldn't keep them. It's not, like I said, it's not that I wasn't paying a decent salary, because I always pay a decent salary. There's people just don't want to work. When you have 45 telling people basically that they're getting paid more money sitting on their rear ends than working, they're going to obviously choose that for whatever. And that's the kind of mentality that I was experiencing with hiring people.
And you were hiring them to do what?
To read to the kids, to basically work with the kids alongside with me. And I find myself doing all the work. Even when I hired them, like 3 or 4, to work in the pods. I had the pods here, working with the young people. I find that it was a difficult task to even get young people that should know the technology, that they don't know the technology. So it's just a challenge. It's a challenge trying to find a fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I'm running into. It's been times, but for the most part, I usually hire like 7 people just to have the children basically with a one-on-one. So if I have 8 kids, I have 7 employees.
Mm. Well, I can kind of see the need to do that, having been involved in situations where I might have been doing a poetry workshop or, having a reason to be in a classroom with children and seeing how important it is or how necessary it is to have people in the room to manage the behavior of the children. And then you're talking about children who have behavioral challenges. I would think that would actually magnify the need to have someone there to try to, to manage that situation. It's not an easy thing to do. And then, being faced with what we've been dealing with in terms of this pandemic, and the fact that you've got these other factors that are preventing people from being in proximity to each other. There are a whole bunch of landmines that we have to navigate in order to move the needle forward. But I will say this, I just want to credit people like you who take it upon themselves to do something about what they see happening in their communities and in their environments. This is really the thing more than anything else that offers us hope in terms of the way that we're living our lives, because the government is not going to do everything for us, regardless of what we think. We're going to have to take some ownership of our own lives in our own communities, in our own families, and we're going to have to do and get results. So I just want to commend you for doing what you've done, to take that building and transform it the way that you have, and to make it into a useful and usable space that impacts the lives of others is nothing short of exemplary and a model to be followed, especially considering the challenges that you have yourself. Once again, it's a murder mystery. It is Murder on the Night Train. It'll take place at the Caledonia Arts and Community Center, and that is located at 960 Caledonia in Cleveland Heights. For more information, you can reach out 216-249-1111. Joyce Dixon, thanks for being my guest on Open Door.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And to those of you who are listening, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.